Alright, so this is the last video I'm gonna record for today. The day is the 2nd of July. So if you hear like white noise in the background, that is AC. Alright, so I'm down south right now. Alright, so basically alright. Wsrian Diet. This is I think the third video. And the name of this for the series of Wsrian Diet is The Truth About Diet. And first, let me re-explain the Wsrian Diet. So the term Wsrian or Wsr is the original name for the deity they call Osiris, which is said to be the original human, the divine human, the human that made humanity more human, that taught humanity how to be human, and is quoted as the Godfather. So you have people that gets that label, the Godfather, is like someone that oversees everything and keeps things in check and kind of serves as that model. This is the original Godfather in terms of like divinity from a spiritual perspective, not just physical, but also spiritual perspective. He is the God of the dead. The original God of the dead is said to be Anubis, which is said to also be to be his son. Yet the God, he's the God of the dead. He watches humanity like he represents transcendence, um, and like spiritual evolution, human evolution. So, without further ado, let me re-explain this. So, Wsrian Diet, right? That's basically just saying like a diet that's traditionally able or safe for the human to both consume and indulge in. To consume for energy, so you could be a normal functioning human being, and also if that's what you choose to do, which is pretty much 90% of how we eat food, which is for indulgence or for if you have a taste. So I did in my last two previous videos. I talked about things you can't eat, things that's just against it. But now I'm gonna talk more about what diet is. What the fuck? My bad. Right now I'm gonna talk about what diet is and just explain the secret about diet. So Wsrian diet is like the staple of the human diet. Deals with like things basically, to say it straight, just to give a revisal. The things that's not Wsrian is like cheese, yeast, uh, and just anything processed is not Wsrian. Alright? Anything processed, heavily processed or processed is not Wsrian. The reason why cheese is a processed thing, it deals with like, it's just a processed thing. I did a video on it. It should make sense to you. I hope it does, because I'm not talking about it. So now you have different approaches to the human diet. You have some people that's pescatarian, which is they just eat fish, no meat. You have some people that's vegetarian, which is where they eat no animal meat, but they will eat animal products. You have people that's vegan, which means that they won't eat any animal products, which is very hard to really accurately do, because there's so many things that is used that has there's so many animal products that's used for other products. And then you have people that is alkaline vegan, which is they have a specific vegan diet. Usually people do that to heal from illnesses, because the alkaline vegan diet alkalizes the body, put the mucus levels to a low level, and it generally just feeds your cells. If you take a nice fast, it feeds your cells directly. So you don't really have on a chemical or lower level, you don't really have like a lot of phasement and like just drama and harmonical phasement with the food you eat. You won't be having to release acid or create acid in your body to digest meat, so thus your body can prolong longer. Usually people do that if they have incurable diseases, or if they just need to take a big break from whatever the fuck they was doing in their life and put inside their body, or they're subjectified to, or whatever issues they may have. So, diet. The English language is completely filled of just like spells. That's why it's called spelling. So this is another example of it. So it's kind of like a matrix. They kind of created words that one word is also the other. And thus the meanings cross in between each other and it creates off of that perspective subconsciously. So, die it. So you're dying it. You're dying your body. Your body. Um, I don't want to go heavy on this. This is not the topic, but also the word die, which means like death, is the same word. And said it's not written the same, but it's because it's this when you say it the same, like the same exact way, it's the same word. So die and die is like the same word. Both represents transition. The Kemetic people looked at the term death as transition, so that means transition from one thing to another. So still, the overall the word that is superior, the definition that is superior, and is the most scientific superior, is dye, as in change color. Okay, so when you are having a diet, you are simply changing your inner chemistry. You are what you eat. So basically, you make sure I'm on point here because I got like a little list or whatever. So basically, like say if you were alkaline vegan, your diet would be more of a simple. You have more of a simple chemistry. You may not have a lot of muscles. You may be very limber. You may be very well postured, but you probably won't have a lot of physical mass and muscle. You probably will have a lot of energy. Now that diet is very much so connected to humanity, yet it's not really probably beneficial to people that will do physical work. See, our ancestors during Kemet days, they was very like ancient Egypt. They was very physically able. They would be able to walk long distances, sit in the sun. They would be able to do physical work, things like that. And meat would actually, whatever the meat is, would actually kind of enable you to do that. Will actually enable you to. It serves you in that way. Whatever meat you eating is almost like it can energize you in that way. So meat is not necessarily a problem, but in American diet we do consume a little bit too much carbohydrates in general, as well as sugar. So that in its own self can cause problems. But yeah, meat is really depends. So this kind of gets more into. Let me see if it's time to talk about that part now. So basically, with specific diets, because there's the paleo diet. There's many diets, or there's some people just don't consume certain things. Like for example, you may not consume a lot of sugar or high fructose, but sugar is still kind of sugar. So your body's more likely to digest natural sugars, like sugars that has more vitamins in it, like fruit sugar. I believe like fruit sugar, the actual energization from sugar is just vitamins. Like for example, processed sugar doesn't really have any vitamins or minerals. It just has that sweetener effect, and it's thus kind of like a drug. It's kind of like watered down to a point, like almost like a chemical pill. How that can be like a specific chemical without you digesting it, like from a herb, like how you're supposed to. Sugar is kind of like that processed white sugar. So especially because it has no molasses in it. So thus, because it has no molasses in it, it has no type of like color or hue or information or carbs or carbohydrates that has proteins and etc. 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 that's necessary for you to function. So the best way for you to get sugar is just straight from fruits. Yet it still is sugar. So you may become dependent on the sugar itself if you're approaching it for sugar. You find out that if you consume fruits naturally with the fiber, or if you juice it, you just may not be as sugar hungry as much as you may want, or if you even consume honey, because you're receiving the whole benefit of the sugar. You really sugar is vitamins, by the way, guys. It's something I realized on my own. I didn't read that nowhere, but I believe that's completely true. It made sense to me, and I believe that's the concept there. So basically, diets, like things that you die, can either affect or harm your body. It can either cause an effect or it can just harm your body directly. And the narrative, and this is really the threshold here that I believe I never heard or it was ever spoken on. This is the threshold here. The reality is because when you we all have DNA. So basically, if you're consuming something that is not beneficial to your DNA and or just your who you are spiritually or your ancestors, it can be a harm to you more than the good, or it can even block you. It could die you to something else that's not really you or just of your blood. So there's some people out there that they eat healthy and they still kick the bucket somehow early. And you got some people, using my family actually as a representation. I can say, if anything, they don't need to consume so much of the meat they consume, but you have some people that can just like live for a long time and they will eat meat. They don't eat much vegetable. Now, me, I'm the exception. I don't really do a lot of the meat eating, but I know that for me, I have a good long life because I know I have that energy in me because of my spiritual nature to be able to consume and benefit from meat and not break out and not, and look like I might even be vegan. You know what I'm saying? And I pretty much just eat like meat, but I try to make sure that I eat. I'm very well aware of what I eat. So basically, this is like the reality of what I'm talking about. It's like it depends. Is what I'm trying to say. Like you can't really say and tell people from a scientific perspective you're supposed to be vegan. From what I was taught, our ancestors, they didn't consume a lot of carbohydrates, so they didn't consume a lot of the meat that we consume today. But you can't really tell somebody with a straight face like, "Yo, you're supposed to eat these," because they might have ancestors that was hunters and gatherers for the village, and they'll bring in meat. That, by the way, the meat wasn't just used for eating. The meat was also used for offering to ancestors. The meat was also used for just consumption on a physical, multi-dimensional level, physical and spiritual. So if you have people that's those hunters and gatherers, they're gonna naturally consume this meat. You still got African tribes that still, some of them they consume, some of them just drink the blood of the animal. The point I'm trying to make is what becomes a narrative. Something I'm trying to shine light, a foreshadow I'm trying to shine light on now is like what becomes a narrative of thus approach of becoming or approaching any diet. Is it to be healthy? Is it to heal from something? All that has a specific approach. So, what is the reason for someone to become and do into a diet and change or even probably detriment themselves in the process, even if you don't physically immediately see it? That's the point I'm making. Because you would think that you need to do this and this and that because you have one problem, but you need to do this instead. Or you need to really actually do this properly. Right? So, it's kind of longer than I wanted it to be, but I had to give a revisal because I didn't talk about this in a long time. And one video may be more popular than the other. So I always try to make sure I kind of break it down a little bit. 13 minutes is worthy information. I never heard of the stuff I'm talking about. I never even heard of it. You are what you eat. Pay attention to what you consume. You are your DNA. Your DNA is you. So whatever you consume is like your ancestors, other aspects of you is consuming it. And whatever is okay for them to consume is okay for you to consume. It really comes down to that. It's not a thing like, it's not a thing that there's no necessary reason to have all these multiple diets. A lot of the reasons why we did diets when we was more ancient in our humanity, when we was more perfect human, like almost like perfect society type thing in Kemet, it was for spiritual reasons. Like maybe you refrain from meat or refrain just for this specific purpose for this specific time period because of initiation or like something you're learning or something you're tapping into or something you're blossoming from inside of you. And that's really the reasons like that people will diet, but some people just do it for trendy reasons. I don't know. It's almost like similar to the same approach of going about drugs. Some people will do drugs just to feel, just for the sake of the experience. It's not really a reason that they know of what they're or that they was told or prescribed to do from like a spiritual average advisor, from a spiritual advisor, I meant to say. So it's like it becomes like problematic in its own narrative. You are what you eat.